Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Hello, hello. Oh, it's so fun to watch everyone. Like the waiting room is just like it's like as like everyone comes in from the waiting room. Oh, and we got our AI note takers here too. Fantastic. Welcome. Welcome to the AI note takers. All right. Good to see you. Good to see you. If you Welcome to the State of AI and the People function. This is a session where you are welcome to be as interactive as you like. If you feel like it, feel free to drop something into chat. If you want to introduce yourself as well, we also have an icebreaker question that we will be putting up momentarily. But in the meantime, welcome in. Get comfortable. I don't know about you. I have like all my beverages. I have like a coffee, a tea, a water. So we are set. Hmm. Ooh, sorry, you have a friend in chat. Nikki says hi.
Hi, Nikki, fellow Chicagoan.
Ooh, nice.
Hello, hello.
Love it. I love it. All right. Ooh, British Columbia. Amazing. All right, God. I know personally, I'm calling in from the Bay Area. I know Sari's in Chicago. Stacy, you're in Arizona.
Yeah,
And
I'm in Phoenix. I was about to just look at the temperature. Oh, it's only 97 right now, so no big.
I mean, practically Arctic. And then 70 year, is it North Carolina or South Carolina?
Columbia, South Carolina. But home of the Carolinas, go Canes. I don't know who
There we
watches
go.
hockey.
All right, go Canes. All right. Wow, a lot of love in the chat for that. All right. Yes, go Knicks. I know, lots of excitement amongst the New York crew. Our my co-founder is New York born and bred, and he waxed poetic for about 15 minutes in our team meeting this week about how excited he was. All right. Okay. All right. We still have some people trickling in from the waiting room, but let's kick things off because we have a lot to talk about. Um, I'll introduce myself and then my colleague Lexi is here. She's invisible, but she's here. Lexi, you can feel free to screen share anytime our icebreaker question, and I'll tell people how to interact with that. But welcome. My name is Diana Sadowski-Joseph. I'm the co-founder of Clarinet. If you want to find us on the internet, that's clarinet.io. And at Clarinet, we help organizations adopt AI. We help them move up the AI adoption spectrum. And today we are here to talk about the state of AI and the people function. And I'm joined by three esteemed panelists. I will intro them momentarily. But Lexi, do you want to do the what is it, mentee? There's like a
It should be visible to the participants. Folks, can you give me a thumbs up in chat if you
there we
can
go. Yes.
see this?
Here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Yes. Amazing. Okay. So, ooh, I love all the little dynamic thumbs up. So basically, all you have to do is just click on where would you say your organization falls on the AI adoption spectrum? Where do you fall? So just click on the descriptor that feels right for you. So, is your organization AI skeptic, AI novice, AI curious, AI enabled, AI first, or AI native? Oh, very cool. Well, this is fun. I was reworking a Canva the other day, like reworking a slide deck, and my 4-year-old looked over the shoulder and he's like, "It's a video game." And I was like, "I wish." It's like you're moving slides around. No fun. I was like, okay. Okay. Amazing. Amazing. Amazing.
South 12th Street and Hennepin Avenue.
Oop. Someone is navigating somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Ooh, I love this. The clustering, AI novice, AI curious, AI enabled, AI first, one or two in AI native. That's not surprising. There are not very many AI native companies at this moment in time. All right, but also very few in the AI skeptic, which also makes a lot of sense. That's something that we're seeing a lot of is just the shift up the spectrum as more and more people just become more comfortable with AI and that. Great. All right. Well, feel free to keep clicking, but then I am going to move us along and we can jump into the content that we have for you. So let me share my screen once again. So, as I mentioned, I'm Diane. I'm the co-founder of head of product here at Clarinet, and we have three amazing panelists who are going to be joining us and speaking. And not only are they great, I've worked with all of them. So personally, I really, really respect their work, but they also have been very much on the forefront of AI in their organization. So they have a lot of really good insights, kind of notes from the field. I'm going to nominate Stacy first. Would you like to just give a quick little intro of what do you want people to know about you?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Stacy Nordwall. I am currently the VP of People Strategy at Pyn, which is an employee lifecycle automation communications platform. Before that, I was at Culture Amp. So I have very specifically been in HR and HR tech in Australian HR tech for a while, which feels incredibly niche. But it's been wonderful to really be able to bring that HR perspective into technology and again, being able to do that within AI. So really happy to be here today and to talk about what I've been up to.
Love it. I love it. All right, Stacy, who is going next? The panelists ganged up against her and made her go first. So now she gets to choose who goes next.
That's right. I'll toss it over to Stephanie.
Thanks, Stacey. I'm Stephanie Schuler with LifeLabs Learning, Chief People Officer. LifeLabs Learning is a management training and development organization where we help clients achieve their business results by driving through transformative live experiences that help drive productivity and performance. And for me today, what I'm bringing to the table for that group of dots that were in the AI enabled and AI curious, I'm in the trenches with you with the org, and so want to be able to bring some of that perspective to you. You are not alone.
Right. And sorry, that means you're up.
Yeah, I can love Life Labs and Pyn. My name is Sari Day. I'm part of the learning and development team at Stitch Fix, where I work with some incredibly kind, incredibly smart people solving some incredibly cool and interesting problems. We are a subscription company. We pair you with a stylist and help you find the perfect wardrobe. Prior to that, I ran my own consultancy where we helped companies manage their talent retention through learning programs and leadership programs. And I worked in tech before that. So like lots of folks, I'm sure who are listening, a few iterations of my career.
Amazing. All right. Thank you, you all. And yes, I see lots of love for LifeLabs and Pyn in the chat. And yeah, I too, I'm a LifeLabs alum as well. I was an early joiner and was there for 8 years. So lots of love for LifeLabs myself. All right, fantastic. As I mentioned, Clarinet, I'm co-founder of Clarinet, and we work with organizations to help them adopt AI. So that's the lens that I'm coming from. But I also spent many, many years in people operations, organizational change, behavior change, leadership roles, and all that jazz. So, oops, sorry. This is a PDF that we're sharing because we built it in Claude Design, and Claude Design is fantastic. Lexi did a great job with it, but it's glitching when it came to the PowerPoint download. So this is the agenda here. We're going to be focused in a couple of three areas. What's landed, like state of HR, what's landing, right? Like what's working, what's lagging, and what are we watching? Like what's coming up next? And if there's time at the end, we will have audience Q&A, a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording and we will share the recording after, although please do, Vegas rules here in the sense that we're asking people to speak with candor, so please be respectful of what anyone might share. Please also stay on mute. Just with a crowd this big, very exciting, but also can be a little distracting if people come off mute. Although if you want to say something, feel free to come off mute and ask a question or say something. And then that said, ideally questions will go in the Zoom Q&A as they come to you. That will allow us to keep track of them. If you put them in the chat, that's great, but the chat might run on and we may not be able to capture your question. So, right. Fantastic. So let's jump on in. So as with every good prompt needs context. So this is the context of the prompts that we are going to discuss today. So I'm coming from a place of Clarinet. We've worked with over 70 organizations on AI adoption. So I get to have a lot of conversations with a lot of different teams about the state of AI in their function. So that's the lens that I'm coming from. We also surveyed over 200 people leaders who told us kind of where are they in AI adoption within their organization. And then, of course, you already met our esteemed panelists who've been driving AI inside their own organizations. So that's the kind of the data set that we're working with today. And so let's jump on in. If you're curious at all about the data, this is who we heard from. It's cutting off on the side here. Let me see if I can scroll over to the side all the way. But basically, if you're curious about kind of in the survey results, it's a real mix of different industries. I think one of the things that really jumps out at me is how many people, people are filling this out, who have been, the majority of people filling this out have been in the field for 10 plus years, which means that the majority of people who are kind of in the trenches with AI adoption have been working in the pre-AI era much, much longer than in the AI era, right? And I think many of us are in that boat. All right. And as I said, all of this will be shared with you all after if you have any thoughts or questions or anything like that. So let's jump on in to what has landed. All right. So what is kind of working already in the state of AI? So this is what our survey results showed. This to me represents some real progress. One of the things that we do when we study AI super users is that a diversity of use case is a good indicator of value from AI. So most people who get value from AI use AI in a variety of different ways. That makes sense. And that's playing out in the organization, right? So teams on average are using it in at least 3.6 areas of the function. Including these, this is the bucket. This is, employee comms being kind of the most predominant, comp being one of the lowest, which is interesting. And then we've got kind of this range in the middle. But this is where I'm going to throw it to some of my panelists. I would love to hear from any one of our panelists who wants to share. What are some examples of AI use cases that you are just loving these days? And why? Why do you like them, right? What impact is it having on your org?
I can jump in and start. One thing I want to say just in like looking at this is I think that this, and also thinking about the chart of where people put themselves in terms of like AI skeptic to, AI native, is it feels like comms is kind of that first place where people start experimenting. And so it doesn't surprise me that a lot of people are saying that. Like that's almost the entry point where you start to figure out what AI can do for you. You're kind of like learning, how to have it actually work in your voice or or to use language like that your company would use, like that's where I think a lot of people start testing it and it's a good and kind of safe entry point. And then people start moving beyond that pretty quickly. And I think the thing that I've seen that I have been most impressed by is, and one of the challenges that HR folks have is our data tends to be all over the place. So the thing that I get super excited when I see people doing is they're saying, I'm building this dashboard, right? And I'm pulling together all of these things that are from this spreadsheet and this platform and all of these different things to actually get the data they want, how they want it, and actually pull it together and like start being able to analyze the trends and do, a bunch of things that especially, if you can't pay for some of these bigger platforms, even the bigger platforms honestly don't always do a good job of collecting all the data because, it might be in 10 different spreadsheets and such. So I think just seeing that people are really getting into a space where they're able to create something that is purpose built for them, that is gathering all of the data that they need, I think that has been something that's been really exciting for me to see.
Love it. I love that. Stephanie or Sorry, anything that you want to add to this one? Any favorite use cases these days?
I'm going to go to something that's not a use case. It's a use case-ish. And that has been us taking a lot of the best practices that we learn on, webinars and sessions like this and out in the field at conferences, and really moving that inward to try to reset our adoption. So our use case is how we have reset the standards for our AI adoption. And in doing that, really taking into account taking AI adoption and recalibrating it from something that we were taking a bottoms up approach from, which was very focused on experimentation and individual, curiosity, and moving it more toward our business goals are our AI goals. Those are one and the same. So this is not something net new that you have to learn. How can you now have more focused adoption? And how can we drive from the top down as well as the bottom up? And that is something when you're in a conference and you're learning, you're hearing people and then you're like, well, what is that going to look like? For us, it's been really helpful for getting more formalization. I shouldn't say formalization, but I would say increased rigor and governance around AI and around our champions and exactly what it is that we're looking from, both from our ownership perspective and from a cultural perspective.
Amazing. Sorry, anything you want to add to this one? I mean, we've got lots more things that we can talk about. So great. I did see some enthusiasm for AI and onboarding. Yeah, it is interesting to see it kind of slightly lower on the list. I just want to share one use case that we've been playing around with at Clarinet because we are growing, we are hiring. We are hiring. So if you know anyone who might want to work with us, please send them our way. But one thing that we've done that's been really cool is to create essentially like an interactive Claude artifact that allows people to essentially kind of learn and onboard themselves to some of our, the Clarinet basics and the Clarinet fundamentals. So it's kind of this like self-guided learning path that's very interactive. It's just in kind of your basic Claude, but it's based around kind of some of our standardized materials and so on. But it's been a really cool way of, even though we're like a very lean team, to provide a level of rigor and robustness in our onboarding that I think is not true of a lot of organizations of our size. And so that's been really fun to kind of play around with. And what's been great is also the people who are being onboarded are actually contributing back into it. They're like, oh, I saw this other thing and I didn't see it in there, so I'm putting it back in. So Stacy, to your point of like the dynamic and collaborative nature of let's do this together, I think is also a great sign. All right. So this is just like kind of one click deeper of drafting and analytics, right? So was one of the top areas that people liked. I think Stacy, to your point, comms feels like a very natural starting place, in part because it is so qualitative, right? It's like, you're not really going to get it right or wrong. It's more of like, do I like it more or less? I mean, clearly comms can go very wrong, but you know what I mean? You get the gist. And then data and people analytics. I did see some things about like Lori, you tried to use AI to summarize survey results, it made stuff up. This is absolutely where a certain amount of like AI like fluency, like the way that you leverage AI to analyze data is really important because if you just throw a bunch of data into like your chat GPT and are like analyze this, the hallucination possibilities are much higher. The good news is grounded hallucination or hallucination rates in um, content that is grounded in a specific data source are now much, much, much lower, sub 10%. And so this is also one of those where fluency makes a big difference in terms of accuracy. So, yeah. All right. You've had a chance to read this. Again, we'll send this over later, but let's get into some of the juicier stuff. So this one, I will say, I'm going to shout sorry out for flagging this in our pre-prep call, which is the unique situation that people operations finds itself in, which is every team or department is expected to AIify these days. But the people team has the unique additional mandate of helping all of the other people AIify. So it's kind of this double crunch where you need to kind of do this for yourself and for your function, but then also potentially support every other human in the organization in this process. And we're seeing that clearly almost half of people are feeling that crunch. But sorry, since you were the one who brought this up, I'd love to hear from you. What has been your perspective on it? What's been the state of things and any thoughts on like how to navigate it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've come to realize is that part of our job in the people function isn't necessarily to teach people AI tools and skills, right? Like we are not tech experts. A lot of our tech teams are far more advanced than we are when it comes to, their skills in AI simply because that is their role. I'm not a marketing expert the way the marketing team is using it. And my analogy for this is last week I went to a pottery class and I tried the wheel for the first time. And my bowl wasn't perfect. And the teacher came by and she made a few adjustments, and suddenly my bowl was perfect. And I could have taken this perfect bowl and been like, yes, I did it. But that wasn't why I joined the pottery class. It wasn't to make a perfect bowl, it was to learn how to make the perfect bowl. And that's a different skill set. I didn't make a perfect bowl, the teacher made the perfect bowl. And so it was painful, but I actually pulled the clay off the wheel and started again. And that is the skill that we are tasked with teaching people to pull the clay off the wheel and start again. And to put that mindset of learning on. And that's really hard because a lot of the time we hire experts, right? And the whole point of being an expert is that you come in and you know how to do things. And we've left that learner mindset behind. And so when I think about my work in L&D and how it connects to AI, it's less about let me teach you more ways to use AI, and it's more let me teach you ways to rewire your brain so that you're comfortable pulling the clay off the wheel, even though you have the perfect bowl and starting again. I hope that analogy makes sense.
I love that. That's beautiful. It kind of so beautifully describes the need to do some like unlearning, right? It's like how do you unlearn in order to be able to take advantage of these new things? I'm curious, Stephanie or Stacy, what has been your experience either with the dual responsibilities of function and org, or as Sari's point of like unlearning, what's the unlearning that you've seen people struggle with?
Yeah, on when I think about the HR team specifically, the unlearning piece is so key to it. And when we first started my team, it was very much can how can we do where can we use AI? Can AI do this? Can AI do that? Can AI do this? Awesome, right? But then we had to take a step back and it was like more discernment. And so it was less about can AI do it as a starting point from more of a should this work? Before we start throwing AI at it, does it like need to exist? Should it exist in its current form? Should it be redesigned? If we were starting over today, is this still what we would use as far as a program, a process, a form, etc.? And so I think taking that step back and looking at the simplification first and unlearning, and I think also just like reattaching from things that you were a part of building, because once upon a time, these were really important decisions and this was the best answer. And now you're the same person looking at that answer and having to challenge that. That mindset shift, I think, has really been something we've been working on, and increasing the discernment and also letting go of some of those attachments that we have to things that no longer serve us.
I love that. I love that. The it's often called the IKEA effect, right? Which is like you grow more attached to something that you help create, which can be a beautiful thing in terms of change, but then can also, if you're trying to like get rid of the IKEA dresser that no longer fits the space, like, there's the reluctance to do so. Stacey, I saw you unmuted. I'd love to hear about your experience with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have this kind of conversation about like what is HR's role in this, and for sure there are things that are in our wheelhouse, like change management. Like that is something we need to be involved in. How is it rolled out across the company? L&D, all of these kinds of things are the things we need to be involved in. How an engineer specifically include their changes their workflow to include more AI is not our area of expertise, right? So I think there are large parts of this that really do lean into our areas of expertise, and that's where we really should be, owning that part of the process. The other thing I think of, and this is kind of building on what Stephanie was saying, that right now, or towards the beginning, I think a lot of folks are kind of almost doing these one-for-one swap outs of like, okay, AI could do this bit, or AI could do this bit. And I think there is a part of stepping back and looking at the entire workflow and reworking the entire workflow. If you have 10 things that happen, instead of saying AI is going to do step 2 and 7, is this the right workflow anymore? Can this workflow completely change based on something that we're able to do with AI? And then we get time back to do something else, be more strategic, whatever it is. So what are those kind of routine tasks? What are those workflows that can be reworked? I think those are the kinds of things where, once you get a bit more of that experience and fluency and understanding of what works and what doesn't, and of course, being in HR, where can you safely put your data and what kind of data and where you can't, then kind of reworking it to really like substantively be different. That's also like I think the work that we need to do.
I love it. Yeah. We talk a lot about this of not inventing or not creating faster horses, right? How do you not just speed up the current process, which may or may not be satisfactory, but how do you actually kind of get to the destination better or faster, right? So yeah, a big part of a lot of the work that we're seeing needs to be done. I'm seeing some questions about security and safety. We're going to cover that in the lagging section, so don't worry, we will touch on that. I just want us to also just kind of take one quick pit stop here because I think it's really interesting. We have kind of only 1 in 8 people feel their people team is leading the org on AI adoption. But I think my question to the group is that does that matter? Like, is it the people's team mandate to kind of be a leader or a champion of AI adoption amongst other teams, or what is the role in terms of just kind of role modeling? What is the role of the people team in this? Any thoughts?
I see workforce preparation as a major and really working with other functions, depending on how your company's structured, like say the communications function, if you have a larger organization, organizational development. But I see it as a triad of really good strategy and identifying the business need, and then also connecting the dots and utilizing communication and change management principles to bring employees along. So I think that's where we can be very unique in that area, and that's where we should set the pace.
Yep, you went on mute, but yeah, amazing, amazing. Thank you, Connie. Yeah, so like setting the pace on some of the more like workforce planning dynamics and things like that. Um, great. Stephanie and Stacy, I saw you both unmuted, and sorry as well. All right, everyone, all at once. Thoughts?
I think I'm the last one off mute, so I'll jump in. I think that one thing, potentially like an old mindset that folks, depending on your teams, are transitioning away from, is this idea that everyone is supposed to have like the same skill set level, or almost like a peanut butter type approach when it comes to enablement and AI. And when I'm thinking about where the people function is and can lead, you should lead, but being a leader is based off of your function and your use cases and what that means. So you should be experimenting. You should be improving processes. But that does not mean that that leading in your area is going to make you the expert or the leader externally. So that's kind of where I see a bit of the disconnect there when it comes to like where you should be. In more tech savvy organizations, some people teams might be at the forefront, but if you're not, it's okay. I think it depends on what the mandate is, what the areas of opportunity are for you and your function, and also like what progress you're making with your team. That to me is really what's important when we're thinking about the people function being the leader.
Love it. Yeah. Stacy, sorry.
Yeah. What I was going to say, kind of similar in that vein, is that I think about, we don't want to think too much about the tools specifically, but some tools are purpose built and some are not. And so like Claude Code is a specific purpose built tool for coding. If you think about, AI integration into engineering, if you have a purpose built tool, it is likely that you will, produce better code or, than people who don't have a purpose built tool. So for certain parts of the organization that have tools that are more specific to their functions, I think it would make sense for them to be a bit further ahead. I think when you look at HR, I don't know, Claude is not purpose built for HR. I know that they have connectors and skills, but truthfully for me, it's not purpose built for us. It's purpose built for looking through a bunch of documents and synthesizing information, which is not necessarily what we do, right? So I think that, I wouldn't expect every department throughout the organization to be leveraging it the same amount or be at the same place when truthfully the tools aren't all equally in the same place. So I think it really is, again, to Stephanie's point about like, well, what is the mandate? What is the expectation? Maybe for engineering, the expectation is that they redo their workflows and think of it, automate more of it, put more AI into it. And for another department, it's just experimentation and it's just learning. It could be something completely different. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well, that like a blanket approach probably doesn't make the most sense, just based on, a bunch of different things, but tools being one of them.
I love that. Yeah.
At Stitch Fix, we're really fortunate that our leadership team are really committed to ensuring that we have an AI-enabled organization. So we have, Diane, you've met him, my colleague Shiv. Shiv leads our AI enablement across the org. That is his role. And our team works alongside him. And I come back to what I said before. I don't think that it is HR's role to be the experts in AI and AI usage. In L&D, I'm not the expert in sexual harassment, discrimination, and like the legal ins and outs of that. But I am still responsible for ensuring that every single person in our organization is trained in that, right? Like it's my job to create the space that enables that learning to happen and to provide the tools in order for everyone who wants to learn to be able to do that. That's my job, not to be the expert on it. And I'm going to age myself a little here, but back in the day when I worked in marketing, digital advertising was new, right? I remember when we started doing banner ads and online ads, and we didn't change people's outcomes or performance KPIs. We still said, how many customers did you convert? What is our churn rate? We weren't saying how many digital ads did you make and how, right? And so I think we need to remember that AI is a tool and that it's not our job to mandate how you use it, but it is our job to say, were you able to do more work? Were you able to be more efficient? Were like, are we should be measuring the same outcomes and letting people figure out how best to use it, right? Like I'm never going to use AI for data because I'm good at it, I like it, I enjoy it, but I'm going to use it for other things that other people that comes easily to other people. And so I think we really need to make sure that we know that our role is to create the environment and the culture and the enablement as opposed to being the experts.
Yeah. I love that. I'll layer in just a couple of things from, I see some questions in the Q&A about like what should HR's role be and what are some of the different ways that we've seen HR, like the roles that we've seen HR play. And I think like the panelists have already hit the nail on the head that, focus on your strengths. If your strength is understanding how the humans respond to change within your organization or what good succession planning looks like or, how people work together, AI, that's a huge part of AI being leveraged successfully. So instead of trying to say, hey, I understand how the software development lifecycle should evolve in an AI native scenario, it's saying, hey, as a tech leader, it's likely that, the outside world is going to expect that your team deliver more and faster. How are you thinking about catalyzing that with the group that you have? And how might I be able to support that and here's what I can do and here's what I can't do. And I think one thing that we've seen work really well is when you are going around and asking, hey, what help or, how can I support in AI initiatives from the people team lens, it's be very focused in the questions you're asking. Because, for example, if you go to someone and you say, how are you using AI in your function? You're setting yourself up to get into a discussion of how AI is used in a function, which, to your point, does not play to your strengths and expertise. Whereas if you come at it from the lens of how are you setting your people up to succeed in a function where AI is more a part of their work, that's a question that you might have real answers and solutions for. And so I think like that's just one small example of where HR has a hugely important role to play in all of this. And actually, a lot of the organizations we work with, the people team is either the like at the tip of the spear in terms of driving AI adoption org wide, or at least a very close collaborator with the decision makers. But again, it's one of those where don't be afraid to lean on your strengths and the things that you know is good at, because I like to say like AIs in some ways can be the Trojan horse that we've all been waiting for people to take some of the human stuff seriously. Because now everyone is feeling it all at the same time. Like a good example of psych safety, right? Now that everyone is feeling insecure, it's a lot easier to make the case for psychological safety as a business mandate. All right. Amazing. Okay, so this is kind of what's leading. Let's let's look at the good stuff. Let's look at what's falling behind or what's lagging. All right. So, when AI fell short, and the question specifically was, where has AI fallen short of what you hoped it would do? Right? So that was the specific question. Um, we have the most of the time, the issue was less technological and more on readiness factors. So both skills, training, strategy, then of course AI output being too generic, not good enough, and then the integration aspect as well. I'm curious to hear from the panelists. Um, any moments where you're like AI fell short, or honestly, one something that I would love to hear is what have you decided is just not worth doing? Because I think that's one of the things that we all struggle with when it comes to AI is there's so much inspiration out there. There's only so much time and energy you have to implement things. What are some things where you've actively decided not now, not yet, not worth doing? Let's hear from Stephanie, Stacy, or Sari. And feel free, by the way, feel free to drop some if you're keen to interact. Feel free to drop some examples in chat. We can also save the chat and send that around if people are interested in learning what other people are trying and failing.
Well, I can give an example. This is not fully HR related, but one of the things, because I do more than just HR at Pyn, but um, one of the things that I've done, because I've seen people in the chat mention this, is around developing skills or scheduled tasks within Claude. So, my thing was like, great, one of the things that I do is collect a report weekly that has a lot to do with all the marketing, different ads and analytics and, campaigns. Let me get Claude to run this report for me weekly, analyze the data, help me find the trends, all of that. And it runs every Monday, and that is probably when I swear the most during the entire week, because it does not work well. And so it'll be one of these things where, but again, it's good because this is where I start to learn where its shortcomings are, right? So it will run the report, but sometimes it just decides it's not going to pull the data, and it'll pull forward data from a previous week. Or sometimes it will flag something as like, you must pay attention to this. This is a high level fix. And I fixed it weeks and weeks ago, and I've told it that I fixed it every week since, when it keeps flagging it. But for whatever reason, the context, even if I tell it, hey, we've resolved this, keep it, in your context that we have already resolved this, it'll still come back the next week. So there are things like that where, I get to the point where I'm like, I'm actually not sure this is helpful anymore, because the amount of time that I spend going back and forth with it and validating it or confirming that it didn't actually get the data that I asked it to get, that's something where like I I get frustrated, and it starts to feel like maybe this isn't worth it, which I think that is part of the learning curve, but that's also part of the understanding of like what can the tools that I do actually do, or the tools that I have, what can they actually do well now? So yeah, that's that's kind of been my experience of AI. Just like, I cannot get it to reliably produce this report for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Anyone else have any war stories that they want to share?
I'm not sure it's a war story, but when you think about AI and the like recruiting, right? One thing for us as part of our recruiting process, in particular with our facilitators, are that we do still start off with a video. And watching that video is something that you can now get it so that I think like with our system that like you can get a transcription of it, but what it's capturing the words, but it's not capturing the delivery, right? So that was a moment for us where it's like, okay, you think it's streamlining for you because it's telling you here's how the person performed, like totally based off of the content, but that content is lacking the context of the live delivery, and there's something there that was missed. So it's that discernment that led to it not being a good use case for us. And I only bring that up because there are times where there's something where AI would be cool, but again, you've got to make sure that it's going to meet the moment and not lose out on what you need. And in that element, there was a human touch. And I think as far as like readiness and where AI is falling short, this piece might not be where AI is falling short. It might be more where I think sometimes we're falling short. I still see that there are certain lack of investment and mindset shifts for leaders when it comes to AI. I've noticed more leaders taking pride, like whether internally, externally, and oh, it looks like someone used AI for that. I don't care that someone used AI for it. One, we're telling people to use AI, right? But if the concern that they used it and they should not have because of a security issue, a governance issue, or is it that they use this and I can tell because it is slop. And now you've got to define and actually do the coaching, not on the AI piece, but on the critical thinking, on the judgment, on the inputs and the problem solving. Those are the pieces I think where I still see people falling short is how we're coaching people on those key skills that they cannot lose simply because you are using AI either as like whether it's agentic or whether it's for a step in a process.
Mhm. I love that. We often say like judge the work, not the tool, right? And this idea of uh oh, it looks like they used AI. Let's think like what is problematic about if there's a problem, what is the problem, right? And I mean to your point, like it just comes down to understanding what does high quality work look like, regardless of where it came from. But also, I think one thing I'll just share, and then sorry, I'd love to hear from you, is on the readiness factor, again, just like HR has like multiple hats that they have to wear in this transition, leaders do as well. And I think one thing is also giving people, like making sure that you're investing enough in leaders for their own fluency in order to be able to not just understand AI. It's not about vibe coding dashboards. It's more about like how do you get them enough information so that they can confidently make good decisions? And I think like that's a big thing that we talk a lot about in our leadership programming at Clarinet is like how do we get you enough fluency so that you can make the decisions and show the judgment and the discernment, whether that be decisions in how you're coaching your people or in like bigger AI investments or reinvention as well. Sorry, I'd love to hear from you. And while we hear from you, I just want to move on. I'm going to move us along to this stat, which I think is kind of just like an interesting one in case you ever want to drop the mic in your next senior leadership team meeting when people start to bicker about tools, which is to say, tools are not forever. We're not still asking Jeeves, even though that was one of the front runners in the beginning of the AI revolution. It was always about how the humans. But sorry, tell us a little bit more about what you wanted to share.
Yeah, I uh I think we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what is going to unlock AI for our people. We believe it's going to be our leaders. And so we are working on making sure that our leaders understand what is expected of them. I also think having a really clear company vision on how we want AI to operate in our teams and what we actually want it to do for people. So not become more fluent in AI. It's like that's a tool, right? What do you want it to then do at the end? Because people aren't sitting here saying like, how can I use AI every day? They're here going like, how can I clear out my inbox? How can I get, my code out faster or whatever it is. And so making sure that like all learning, right? Like, do we have a hook in there for people to bother with? I will also say that Canva recently ran wasn't an experiment, but Canva recently ran an AI adoption plan where they gave 5,000 employees have you guys heard of this? They gave 5,000 employees the week off, right? And told them, like, you don't have to answer your emails, you don't have to do your daily work, you just have to play with AI. And on day two, right, the experiment petered out. People stopped. They started going back to returning to their emails. They started, going back to their daily work. They ran out of ideas and ways to use AI. So, what that tells us is that it's not even a time problem necessarily. It's that we need to give people more ways in which to use AI, and peer-to-peer learning has been really powerful for us. So, like having a colleague say, hey, I'm using AI to write all my leadership deck updates. And I'm like, I have to do that. How are you doing it? Can I use it for the same purpose? That has been kind of the most significant way we've unlocked learning for people.
I love that. Yeah, and the question that was Canva who did that, and
Yeah.
that absolutely. This is something that we see all the time, which is it's great. I applaud them for understanding that AI takes time. A lot of companies don't, and they put the onus on employees to learn it on the side of their desk. But the reality is, it also needs direction, right? It's kind of like you're throwing open the floodgates and are kind of like figure out what you need to know to like change your world. And you're like, but I don't know. That's the problem. And so I'll just share one technique that we use a lot that anyone can use, which is before setting people loose on AI, we ask the question, what would you do with 30% more capacity? Because that then gives some people something more concrete to anchor around. It's like, oh, with 30% more capacity, I would do X. I would spend the time here. I would be doing more of this. And by anchoring people around a concrete vision, it allows them to then better problem solve of like how do I, what do I need to clear out in order to get there? How could I use AI to get there faster? But the point is, the more tangible you can make it, the easier it is, right? All right. We have a couple more sections, and I'm seeing a ton in the chat about the safety and the security stuff. So let's dive into that. So this is actually something that we're watching. Um, which is so first and foremost, and this relates a lot to the safety and security, which is only 1 in 4 people have an AI policy that's actually working. I think what's interesting here is how do we define working? One thing I will just share from the Clarinet experience is we often find that your AI policy is tasked with way too many jobs to do, right? Like your policy is supposed to be a vision statement and it's supposed to encourage people and it's a legal document and it's a this and it's a that and the other. And it's kind of like saying that our employee code of conduct is the thing responsible for creating an engaging employee experience, right? Like it's like, ugh. So I think that's one delineation is making sure that there's the policy, but then what are all of the other support instruments that are needed in order to ensure that it's working. Um, but I think what I'm really keen to dive into with this group is a lot of AI policy has to do with one of the things that was identified as the number one concern that people have, which is keeping data safe, right? And I think particularly in the world of HR, keeping data safe is one of those things that we all take very seriously. I'm curious from the panel, what are you wrestling with these days? How are you all thinking about it? Any successes you've had? Any watch outs? Anything we can learn?
So with data security, I think the key piece with this is that, like you said, it's like, what are the policies that you have? And the AI policy cannot do it alone. So, like, if you are just starting with security, relying on your AI policy to create a culture where people are mindful of confidential information and proprietary information, and then you've got a bigger problem and lift there. So at my organization, we are starting from a place where likely because we are in the HR space where that's already a part of I just think our mindset. I think the piece when it relates to data security that has been challenging is that we still have to acknowledge that we don't know what we don't know as far as when employees are going and trying out something outside of the enterprise tools that are authorized. And that's something that we, I'll be honest, that I think we continue to struggle with. And so what we want to do is encourage folks, or what we have been doing is encouraging folks that if there is a use case that you have and it does not have an existing tool, come forward and ask. And that I think has led us to see what folks are like, what are commonalities between tools that folks want to experiment with. And that we should be looking at some sort of an enterprise rollout for that and access, and what are things that might be more one-off. And it just gives us a little bit more insight into some of the things that we might need to look out for, and also education moments for our employees as far as why certain use cases may not be correct. So I think that's been helpful for us, the encouraging you to ask about getting the access and taking it from more of an expansion versus a restriction when it comes to tools.
Love it. Yeah. Sorry, or Stacy, anything you want to add here?
I mean, I would say something pretty similar in terms of, Pyn is an HR tech company. We work with customers' employee data. So that awareness is kind of built in for us because we have to be aware of the security and privacy of employee data, our customers and our own. So I think that is kind of a built-in level, and like Stephanie said, if that doesn't kind of already exist, then you need to maybe take a step back and like think about that more broadly and not just in terms of the AI. So yeah, I mean a pretty similar thing. And then in terms of individual use, I think we have a pretty well-defined set of of ways that we use AI within each department, and most of us primarily use Claude at this point. So it doesn't feel too concerning, and we've kind of created containers around like this is how to help people experiment. Like with uh, for as an example, I can push small changes into our product, but that is because we have set the container of what is the size of change that I could make? What tools can I use? They have Vercel and BuildKite and other things set up in the background so that it will review it before anything happens. An engineer will review it, but we've set up kind of these containers around ways to experiment that work for us and like maintain security.
Amazing. Yeah.
We
Sorry.
also include it in our onboarding, right? Like everyone has to do data privacy and security training because we handle sensitive client information, right? They tell us sometimes before they tell their families and friends that they're gonna have a baby or, right, that they're having major surgery. Um, and of course, like using enterprise-wide, like enterprise mandated tools as opposed to like just logging into chat on your own and private laptop, right? Like all of those things help us maintain security.
I love it. I'll add just two more things and then we can move to close. I know we've got some great questions in the Q&A. I've been trying to answer a few. We will get you answers if we aren't able to answer them live. But I think a couple of things that are really important. I think to your point, Stephanie, about the tool use and like, if you have a use case, put up a hand and say, hey, I want to use it. That is so important because we are past the age where people like if people are seeing AI and they want to use it for in a lot of ways. And if you don't give them a safe way to do it, they're going to do it anyways. Like shadow AI use is actually the biggest risk factor in organizations in terms of data leakage, et cetera. It's much less about the enterprise tools you're paying for. It's much more about someone using their phone to take a picture of something to do some analysis because they're like, oh, I just can't, and I'm tired, right? Big plus one to the training on security and so on. I also think what's really important is getting very specific about what the risks actually are. I think we tend to see people at two ends of the spectrum. Everything is dangerous, nothing is dangerous. And the truth lies in the middle. And you can often leave a lot of really good AI use cases like on the, kind of on the table if you're like, well, we're putting nothing in there, but at the same time, the risk of the opposite is true too. So pushing people to go a couple steps beyond and say, what exactly are you worried about? And let's navigate those constraints in a realistic way, the same way that you would with any other kind of challenge. So amazing. All right. Last but not least, uh, in terms of what we're watching and kind of the focus area looking forward, I don't think this is going to be a huge surprise to anyone. One of the things that we talk a lot about or we see at Clarinet over the last year and a half is the focus shifting from individual AI use to systematized AI use. So how do you create collective efficiency, not just everyone building their own widget? And I just want to share from my experience one little watch out, which is a very popular mantra these days is like, or amongst some CEOs, is like everyone should be a builder. I think there's value in everyone being able to build things, but what you don't want to incentivize is everyone building their own version of what should be collective tools, right? Like everyone vibe coding their own CRM is not going to be a win for your organization. So again, this is one of those things where when you hear those types of things in organizations, you can use your expertise as um, experts in people and say, hey, when we're trying to move towards these goals, how do we incentivize the right behaviors as opposed to the backfire behaviors, right? Um, all right, so that brings us to the end of our time here. Any final thoughts? I would love to hear. Stephanie, Stacy, sorry. What's one thing that is serving you these days? Like that's like giving you hope that you would want people to take away from the session today.
Well, for me, when when I, sorry, when it comes to AI, it's as much about improving outcomes as it is about improving processes. And that's something that we are getting our teams to work on and focus on is like, what is the impact? Not just like that the process is better, but what is the impact? And I think those two go, oh gosh, that was like a 6-7 motion, my bad. But I think those two things go hand in hand.
I love that. Impact versus process. That is gold. All right, Stacy.
Um, what am I trying, what am I want to say? Well, I mean, I think the thing that has been the most interesting for me is like I mentioned that I have actually been set up so that I can make changes within the product because they've created a safe container for me to experiment and do some things. And I think just to the point of like not really knowing what you can do, the idea that I've been given this container and saying, here are some things you can do really got me very, very excited. And seeing some of the things that my coworker was doing, she went on leave and created kind of this Claude skill that updated us on everything that was going on with customer issues. So we didn't have to seek that information out. Like you just get these little tidbits here and there where you're like, oh, actually, this is really exciting. I could really see this and see how to build from it in a way that feels very safe, but also very exciting and useful. So that's what's been thrilling for me.
I love that. Give people containers to do cool, exciting things. It's not just about the work chores. Give them space to do amazing stuff. We're at time, but sorry, let's hear from you. And if you have to hop, you have to hop. But we've loved having you here. Sorry, over to you. Bring us
Yeah,
home.
I'm a stuck record, so I'm going to say the same thing that I've said all the way along, which is that our job in learning and development hasn't changed. It is still to create an environment where people can learn and to enable them to learn. And so bringing all of our learning best practices, this is also a change management project, right? Like if you've ever worked or done any change management, like it's all those skills. So it's not that we need to learn new things, it's that we need to bring all the skills that we already have, which is a lot less frightening than saying like, how do we get everyone to use AI? The robots are coming for us.
I love that. Yes, exactly. Like, what is the common denominator in this versus every other change? The people, humans, which means that every single person in this room is uniquely qualified to be even more valuable than you ever have been before because the human element is going to be the make or break of this transition. So thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you for all of the participants. We will be following up with the recording. If you didn't get your answer in the Q&A, we'll send out some thoughts on that. And hopefully join us for next time. This is our first survey, but we want to keep doing this so we can gauge kind of progress and evolution. If there's one thing that's true about AI, we know that it does not stay the same for long. So thank you so much. Have a fantastic rest of your week, y'all, and hope to see you again next time.